Ooh, it's 7:31. It's 7:31. Yo, we good. Okay, gone. Okay, bum, 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 bum. Bitty, 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 bum, bum. A bitty, 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 bum, bum. A bitty, 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 bum, bum. A bitty, 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 bitty. Testing. 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 We are testing. We are testing. We are testing. We are testing. Oh, I see. I see. Oh my god. We're gonna go at 45. 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 Whoop. Whoop. We good? I think we're good. We're almost good. We're almost there. Hey. Hi. Hello. 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 Ooh. Ooh, this is fun. Ooh. 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 I'm just getting used to this. I'm so sorry I'm so trash on cam. I'm like trash on cam. I'm working on it. My friends, my good people. Oh my god. So this is pretty nifty. This is pretty good. Good. Cool. Great and wonderful. Beauteous. Beauteous Maximus. Oh my god. I'm just getting used to this set. People, I'm getting used to this set. All right. Nobody's here. So I posted this up, but nobody's here at this point. So that's cool. I'm fine with that. It's morphin' time. It's morphin' time. It's morphin' time. Pterodactyl. I had to. I'm so much fun by myself. Ooh. L is for the way you look to me. Oh, this is, I don't know. So, Bride of Panera have a magical disc. I have a CD. I have a disc for y'all. I'm gonna play. I have a disc I'm gonna play called Bride of Panera Supercut that I think we'll enjoy. So this is not a structured talk, I would say. I have been seeing quite a few new developments related to existing conversations that I've been having about uh, the nuclear burden on like quotidian civil subjects. I am very afraid of that. I'm not I'm no expert, but it I am an enthusiast, and this is a cause that I am highly passionate about, and I see just a gross level of irresponsibility from you know the technocratic class, um, and this class is organized by ideology now, which was not necessarily the same kind of case that it is in this time. Before this period, and by this period I mean in the aftermath of the flush of funding and perfunctory cultural attentions paid to generative AI, or I guess as is in vogue now, agentic AI, in these last, 4 years, we're, we're getting the worst. We're getting the worst of it. Um, and I'm glad that I think in colloquial spaces there seems to be more of a grasp of, hate this word a little bit, but it's very useful, psyop. How much of a psyop that you know uh those who are positioned to influence our political decision makers, whom are members of our military in the United States now, as of last year. Um, it's I'm glad that there's more of a grasp upon. I'm trying to choose my words so carefully because I'm on YouTube. There's more of a grasp upon the level of vitriol that these many of these folks possess for the masses, and for the mass culture that produced them. And in the 20 25 years leading up to know this millennium, it was precisely at that time that those folks were being given you know new ideological grounds. I'm glad that crew is now pop. I'm glad that now there's no. I'm glad that now there's. This is kind of annoying. I'm gonna turn that off. I'm glad that crew is now pop. I'm glad that there is now no mistake related to, you know, where our technocratic, plutocratic now class is situated, and the veil is lifting from, so many of our faces, but for a moment such as this, we, we're not yet positioned to um, escape this. Or, and by this, I mean, of course, the mutual impact of, again, those who are in positions of power and the vector of climate change, which they are trying to outrun and distract us from. So I made this chart to help explain uh, where we are a bit better. There's no. I like to title my charts. I didn't title this one. Uh, this, yeah. So, this is just an aid to help people to. If you don't mind, I'm looking on my phone to like make sure I know what I'm talking about. So there is, you know, a grounding philosophically here in the work of Nick Land, uh, who, you know, is just a very sad, bored man. It's deeply sociopathic and disturbed. And he pulled a lot of his material from, you know, a school of thought that I in other content have spent, significant time speaking through cybernetics, but he enhanced some of that, supported some of that, evolved some of that with, some really nihilistic literature from French theorist Georges Bataille, and also from Marquis de Sade, like duh, which is crazy, crazy stuff. Like, exactly, 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 and this is so sad. Wow. Pause. I'm back, and yeah, there. So, what when I observe that when I observe this chart, it it's meant to just really clearly delineate for you what the the base ends, the underlying logic, and the prevailing interest of some members of our technocratic class. They're I'm reminded of this piece, a Substack article by artist founder, incubator lead William Morgan. He runs this incubator, Restless Egg, called, and this piece is called The New America, New America. And in it, he, you know, presents this notion of, okay, post land, post Yarvin, we have now had an inversion between the progressive left and the conservative right, where, according to Dr. Morgan, the right are now the progressive, plural, and the left is conservative. And at face value, that's an interesting device. It needs much more dimension than this. And I feel that is irresponsible to present as a binary here. Even though it's catchy and easy to invoke in company you might want to impress. This is just too much. I feel compelled to show up to declare prior work that I've done, and some of the ambition held there, because not that I was in direct conversation with this specific current crop of actors at the time I was doing the work that I will come to explain in this sit down live stream, but I was definitely in the before spaces of this moment, and some of the social ambition and political ambition that was present in the work that I happened to be doing as a media artist. It would be irresponsible for me not to at least present this in a singular format. So, and I compel all others who can say the same for their own practices. Please put your work in a format that people can access easily. Thank you. Even if you might have problems with legibility for all audiences, the right people are going to get it. Just make sure that it's easy to reach. And so when I return to this chart, I actually began in the middle, which, maybe this could have been a better chart, but I'm not a graphic designer. I date them. What the heck? That's so sick. Do you see a ring on it? No. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a term that I use here to describe, I don't know, the logic behind this and behind this, class of technocrats. And the folks over at Distributed AI Research Institute, DARE, have graciously produced, an umbrella term called TESCREAL to denote the overlap space between, ideology that, this class of people in the American experiment specifically, whether or not they are, nationals of the United States, are applying. And it is a mix of, in this case, it would be, transhumanism, effective altruism, cybernetics, and it's just it's a huge mess. It's a big mess. It's a misappropriation of a number of um really really key thinkers in the realm of cybernetics. Coming to mind for me, would be obviously Bateson, and then as well, even though he's not a part of the original cohort of thinkers there, but he relied greatly on the work Baudrillard. Like, off top, just that's off dome. Like, what are you on? You guys are like you guys don't even you guys can't even read. Number one, you guys can't even read. You just needed something to justify like being POS territory, and this works, I guess. Um, but you will not prevail. You will be contained. um, I mean that. Yeah. There is a school of it's hardly a school, but in the 2010s, there were the accelerationists, who which are very different from the accelerationists that we're dealing with right now. Um, the ones we're getting right now, kind of were cultivated out of a retcon of the trend. If you don't know, if you're here, you probably know, but for jurisprudence, I'm going to say it anyway. Um, and in 2022, there was this very popular board on Reddit. I don't even use Reddit like that, so forgive me if I'm throwing misnomers or whatever. But EAC, yeah, effective accelerationism, and this term effective it's a fascist dog whistle, but this was as a maneuver, according to the two you know authors of this post that happened in 2022, um a center, like a yeah, a center, politically central version or take on accelerationism. Throughout the 2010s, it was, there were left accelerationists and there were right accelerationists, and the and the left accelerationists were also quite, I would say, a little bit undisciplined. Um, the in I was definitely in that. Me, autodidact me was in that cohort of people. I was at the party. I got that. I did the whole thing. Um, with that, you know, but yeah, it's just sick. I wouldn't say it's actually. I actually wouldn't say it was undisciplined. They were routinely, citing black scholars, um, such as Sylvia Winter, such as Fanon Césaire, all of these post-colonial figures, as the deep text, um, and in that account, I would say that it was, as someone who was in the realm of that, it was definitely. It's funny because like the right wing's always getting the term, getting assigned, you know, uh, you know, being, reactionary or neo-reactionary, but I would say those of us who were in that camp of left accelerationism a decade ago were also very reactionary. Um, and I would say I gotta give it up. The right accelerationists had a plan. They really had a plan. They were truly hell bent. Look how far they've come. But now, but now we're gonna be running out of steam here. Because even if, they ditch us, like, the planet will bottleneck them. It's like trying to jump off of the Titanic into a lifeboat, but nobody's coming. It's so sad. I'm sorry, I've gone on such a tangent. So when I look at this chart, we have as an underlying logic for, the technocratic progressives, um, biohostile accelerationism, which is a term I think we should coin. That we should be using that more. Because again, when you're in the original, conversations, constituting our, understanding of accelerationism that were happening, you know, around the late 90s and the 2000s, and then especially in the 2010s, we it was couched within an existing theory movement related to the Anthropocene, like the geological Anthropocene, right? Which therein invokes, so many different, yet again, so many different theorists and thinkers and makers, chief among whom would, in this case, be like Benjamin Bratton, the coiner of planetary stack. I'm really on my armchair tonight, y'all. I'm not even doing that much. This is so sick. I think my audio might be trash, but I don't really care. If I'm gonna be real with y'all, if I'm keeping it real, I don't care that my audio is kind of trash right now. Is it better? The world may never know because nobody's here to tell me. And anyway, yeah, we so there within the initial project of accelerationism, before you even get to the the political variants among them, there's the initial consideration that, okay, we're past the point of no return, we need to speed this up so that we can adapt something else quickly, amongst that project, or and there's this embrace of this notion that the only way out of this crisis is to get through it. Inherently, this is very libertarian notion. Very libertarian notion. So, as a precondition to being a left accelerationist, you are a left libertarian. That's that, yeah. You are a left libertarian, which is where the technocrats really come in at, because they, were the corporatist libertarians in the last, 30 years of the 20th century. That was them. They were a countercultural, a counterculture to the, standard, PMC class. Yeah, I fucked up that. Oops. Beep. Not supposed to say that on YouTube. I messed up that initialization there. Whatever. PMC class, whatever. Um, y'all, I can't talk. Anyway, it's embarrassing that I'm really on my opinions tonight. This is bad. But I want to speak substantively before I get into my literature. You feel me? Um, so when we are dealing with this crop of people, there is not necessarily a relationship to, um, hostility. The case is that, okay, if we indeed are in a world of pain, in for a world of pain, what is the most utilitarian kind of, positive we can get out of this? What's our best path to survival in this? Um, and the notion is that if a train is coming to get you, and and you're on the tracks, your best bet is to run off the tracks as fast as you can. And the train coming in this case would be the door of no return to climate change shuttering. And so the idea is that, okay, we must then embrace the situation and move out of this as quickly as possible, and we must develop, as a civilization, um, fast enough in order to evade this terror. But when we get into this post-Landian landscape, what we get is, okay, actually, because the time that we are in, Virilio, so fast, everything's so fast, we need to be able to hold still our capacity for pleasure and to carry that within the, relative truth of reality. And in order to approach that, okay, you need then to get it where it's available. And if indeed we are in for a world of pain, pain is the source of eros. Because in this mortal condition where there's a I believe it's again, Hindu proverb, um or notion, this idea that we're ash, our at the end of things, our bodies are just 2 pounds of ash. You feel me? And so it then means that, okay, if and this is the tie this if then we are excrement, we are walking excrement, corporeal excrement, preterm, and the point of, you know our lives lived is activity and the source of that is pleasure, then the notion is that we would then need to indulge in pain. And so, in this, very, I believe, uh, the notion is like heterology. This At the end of it, this idea that okay, two things don't make a category necessarily. This this notion lends itself very easily to a cadre of existing fascist political, groups, ideologies, movements, seeds. And so, if the idea is that man must be preserved in and the only real preservation is the actual anthropological record that will and can be left on earth, and in this case the end goal would be, or the, what do you call it, the moonshot would be actually shotting to the moon, actually, then, as I guess, like the some of the EAC people like to say, bringing the light of consciousness to the unconscious planetoids, which is a deeply, like, I mean, this is just colonialism, and this is, and I understand this is a way for these people to hold pride in the, genealogy, like theoretically and culturally. I get it, mechanically, but it's not the way, I think. But anyway, this variant of accelerationism is biohostile. There is the interest to melt down all of biota, for all intents and purposes, or to make it, or to allow, abdication of, our responsibility here that we have constructed for ourselves within, again, and these people are in the Western Project, but within the Western Project, man is a steward for animal and for plant. But this is an abdication and a sadistic positioning with relation to that. And so when that is the underlying logic, as an end, what we kind of get to, especially with Yarvin, is this idea of like power as in, and this is something William Morgan references in the article I mentioned, The New America. This notion of power accumulation as the ends, and so the idea is that, okay, if the technocratic progressive right is in a state of progress culturally, the idea is to, release the fat off of biota, and to, to play Phanes, and to be the primordial egg for new kinds of speciation. Um, and the interest of this being, again, xenocognitive preeminence. The idea is that the light of consciousness is something that is novel and unique to humans. Not the case. Or even if not explicitly the case, the light of consciousness, in quote unquote, would be the thing that needs preservation, whether or not it emerges across species on this planet. And the idea is that, it's a anthropogenic, like, exceptionalism. It's an idea that, like, okay, we are the only ones fit to preserve this. Um, it's so sad. Like, this is just such a sad situation. But I I really am particularly affected by this idea of, like, okay, this relation between the light of consciousness, and that's something that the, you know, effective accelerationists are, that's the type of time they're on, and they're not necessarily, 100% into what I think the more biohostile technocrats are happy to, you know, um, produce here. But there is, it feels naive to me, to just buy the notion that, like, okay, um, indeed it is our job to accept, okay, Earth is over, like, it's our job to have an Earth is over party, and to, like, move it other places. Um, that's like a fast path to a very ugly end to this particular bio project. Um, I deal a little bit with neo-pragmatist thinkers in some of the work that I, happen to be doing, you know, antecedent to what I just kind of explained, or in parallel to what I just kind of explained. Um, and, like, I would say that there is a marked and exaggerated, emphasis from the neo-pragmatists on this idea of linguistic um, preeminence, or linguistic um, pragmatism. And this idea that, okay, within the Western project, which is at the root of the nationalist international system, and it is right now, what, you know what what is then commanded, is not just a metaphysic that is Abrahamic. And again, I'm acknowledging that the neo-pragmatists are anti-metaphysics, but the notion here is, like, like the metaphysical as a linguistic construction, and the activation of that linguistic construction. Do you understand? So, the very logos of, you know these, you know, texts, Bronze Age texts, happen to possess and locomote the the direction here. It's it's denotative of like a very um, depressing kind of limitation. uh, my argument here that I was making in the aftermath of having broken or recreated in the aftermath of the left libertarian left accelerationist you know um, thing going on is this idea of cultural advancement, which is very black. That is very black. Yeah, I'm calling that National National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Read it. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm such a racist, but this is America that I'm speaking from. And actually, I shouldn't be sorry because it's not my fault. Love that isn't that glam that I get to absolve of so many different things on through a corridor like that. Maybe if people weren't creating so many problems, I wouldn't be able to do that. Um, Unfortunately, I have the credits. How smug. um, so, but I mean, real talk though. There is, even though I'm not in love with the back end of this discipline, I do appreciate some elements of topically some elements of like the network can get done from anthropology. This notion of cultural advancement, and I in the aftermath of I think breaking away from the left accelerationists a little bit. I would say for me that would have been around 2017 or 18. I I was definitely in the transhumanist soup at that point though. I still kind of am. I still very much am actually. Yeah. Let me be honest. The transhumanism thing is that's hot girl. Like, but there's a way to do things and this is not it. This is not it. Um I have many things. I could say about that, but I'll spare you. But yeah, there is a fitting binary that actually does exist between the idea of progress and the idea of advancement. And these words are often, you know, in our vernacular, synonymous with one another, but two different things. They are not synonyms. They are not synonyms. And I'm particularly moved by I believe this is from continental philosophy, this notion of phronesis, being better just because you should try. That's the most simple way to put that. Extremely productive. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. I don't have a philosophy degree. I just try a little bit. Um, but yeah, motivating some of the work that I wanted to speak to you about is this idea of okay, like survivalist, like kind of like civil survivalism. I think, and that is, okay, moved and activated through processes of advancement that are inductive, that are connected more deeply to the mark we can make in the time that we have than in any hope to escape consequences for what we have done. We. And for me, I really am enamored by the underlying, you know, impulses of anti-hostile civil design and architecture. And so I mean, in terms of my own work process as a media artist, I, you know, my appreciation for these things um, came alive. Uh, and this is with an interest to veer toward an egalitarianism that does not have the estate to properly, fully exist within the terms of our existing, constructions, nationally, internationally, all levels of, containment or embodiment that belie these. And the notion is that, okay, if we are indeed here, and it is up to us to try, we need to be able to do it in the outskirts or in the outer realms, in a para space, from institution. And this is very naive, but I think it's okay for media artists to be naive. Because for me, the grounding end is the empowerment of the transcendental commons. And for me, the notion is that, okay, there are species that are going to survive what we have engineered, whether they be already, existing alongside us, or they be, generated from, us. I strongly, believe it is our duty to outfit those creatures with what we have. And I think it's a much more grounded and mature position to, however naive, to assume. I'm not into the kind of Apollonian glut of the technocratic class as their Distributed AI Research Institute likes to say, the TESCREAL, you know, class. Um, and so we are in a position in which, okay, we don't need to outrun the train because that's silly, but we can at least make sure we have the most important things in our bag and throw it off the tracks. Back to Earth so that other people to be. That's a whole other conversation. Like, it's like for me, people being other animals or even intelligent, plant life, which exists here, you know, to present. And again, I'm very inspired by the speculative architecture of I believe Michael Brill. Yeah. Except his is like very like his take on it is alarmist, but I'm also, in this realm of like post-nuclear, you know, um, you know, post-nuclear contagion, like survivalism and semiotic. It's up to us to allow ourselves to be the node that we are and to throw the bag for, I'm sure there are going to be some aquatic species who can survive this. Some of them, and if we can make sure that they can, you know, maybe this is one of the best uses of AI. If we can make sure that they can read us, or they can understand what we're saying when we, leave a record for them. Should we do that? Then I think as a species we did okay. Because, I mean, the Earth is always going to change. So why run? Just, I don't know, be gay, have less babies. And we'll just ride it out. That's how I feel about it. I don't think anyway, I'm not a scientist, but I don't think we're going to survive this either. Oh. So, media collapses distances 2021. So, I'd like to play for you some work, my literature. I'd like to play for you some of my literature here. Okay, I'd like to play for you some of my literature. This first piece is a an essay project I did for Transmediale CTM Almanac in 2021, I believe. Um, don't you love discs? I love a disc. I love the vibe. I love the vibe of the disc. I love that. Anyway, this was a piece called Unleash the Data Furnitures. And it opened with the question,
how might some hypothetical organ interface of archive and organization allow the privacy data refuse of high bandwidth industrial entities to be preserved, with these entities existing variably and fluidly between the scale of the macro-organizational, micro-organizational, and the domestic, so as to produce high-efficiency internal economies, energy independent of the individualistic anarcho-libertarian agonisms of decentralization. Neo-pragmatic.
So I'll allow a repeat of that question.
Next, I'll present two neo-pragmatist. How might some hypothetical organ interface of archive and organization allow the plasmic data refuse of high bandwidth industrial entities to be preserved? With these entities existing variably and fluidly between the scale of the macro-organizational, micro-organizational, and the domestic, so as to produce high efficiency, how might some hypothetical organ interface of archive and organization allow the plasmic data refuse of high bandwidth industrial entities to be preserved? With these entities existing variably and fluidly between the scale of the macro-organizational, micro-organizational, and the domestic, so as to produce high-efficiency internal economies, energy independent of the individualistic anarcho-libertarian agonisms of decentralization. Neo-pragmatist Sammy Pielstrom stated that culture is continuously reconstituted through our social action and linguistic encounter with the symbolic world. These social and linguistic encounters with the world imply a direct connection between the decisions of individual agents and community biologies and terrains of the social, linguistic, and symbolic existing across the spectrum of the microorganic and the macroorganic. There is the conception of culture as a phenomenon and a feature of any community biology, whether specifically anthropocentric, generally zoological, or other. Media collapses distances between individuals and artifacts of culture in the form of narratives, information, and interfaces. As media technologies themselves advance, so do the bandwidth of artifacts capable of being transduced. We move from using media and culture to relay simple symbols toward relaying more complex, multimodal symbols. Given an argument that the cultural reconstitutions of Pielstrom operate not only in the direction of the individual to the communal, but also antidirectionally, then it is deducible that our symbols have the capacity to transform us at the level of the behavioral and therefore at the level of the epigenetic, influencing our decisions, productions, and reproductions. Undermining the Apollonian ergonome, what then becomes warranted are the presence of machinics which unceasingly recast bone by denaturing it into cartilage so as to yield false slurries of plasma. Dualism between body and apparatus as characterized in definitions of interface like those given by design historian John Harwood, who defines the term interface by the stricture quote site at which the human body interacts with a complex mechanical apparatus, unquote. Most curious here is the categorical lossiness inherent by this kind of definition. It befits an ergonome, which, if not progressed into the throes of the charge, toward its obsolescence, would be totally obsolete by the time the prototype of which has reached the final stages of its production cycle. Within a standard industrial ecology, use of such product begets emission byproduct and material of discard categorizable as waste product or refuse yields characteristic of plasmas decant from bone. During the post-Second World War period, the handiwork of mid-century modern cultural agents composited a techno-utopian aesthetic agenda disharmonious and anterior to their general intentions to develop a multisensory and popular language for the industrial modernism of the coming information age. The alliance of such agenda with techno-utopianism was one not wholly accountable to the malignancies which technologies of automation and industrialization are capable to incur. Fervor for so-called revolutionary artifacts allowing for adaptations to the new technological environments of the post-war period came with an optimism regarding the cybernetic, which is what Michigan State University's Justus Nealand shares with us in 2018's Happiness by Design, within the context of an extended analysis on the filmic works of the mid-century modern Eames design team. Looking retroactively at select works of Ray and Charles Eames, we see, particularly, works of furniture able to help us parse this vector of techno-utopianism and its design expression manifest to the respects of micro-organizational and domestic scale agents. Attentions toward their famed solar do-nothing machine provide precisely this. Gesture first, as Neelan mentions, toward a utopian environment to come by making an attempt, more primarily, to train human beings in the apperceptions and reactions needed to deal with a vast apparatus whose role in their lives is expanding almost daily, and subsequently, expression of post-war techno-utopianism's obfuscation of RNG materialist grounding. Plainly speaking, the object offers a glorification for the artificia of the image's design prowess and the resultant representation of operational genius as demonstrated through the object. The mid-century modern-style design agenda offered for the period following fascism, supposed popular defeat, anterior to its aim of multisensory and popular language for industrial modernism, a materialist program declaring its victory as the natural and obvious consequence of inherent liberal ideological superiority, go about their work as palaces of memory for the many plasmas of wild data we incur throughout our lives. Doing less to accelerate our consumptions and productions in terms of speed, like Virilio or Calvino suggested during the prior millennium, and more to assure that our physical and immaterial ergonomic sense cultures well. More to assure our ability to move liquidly between scales of organic agency. We end up with exoskeletons truly exogenous to our bodies. We look toward furnitures offloading our cognition, offloading our worst, agonizing our plurality of experience and clean production. From the start of 2021, we are finally in position to accept and enumerate in the appropriate and accountable piecemeal the functional and phenomenological bedrock offered to us by the vestigial legacies of mid-century modernist techno-utopianism. In the stead of fresh formica and polyurethane, one might take materials in some unrecyclable or inert condition.
I'm gonna stop here. This is an excerpt of again this essay I did, Unleash the Data Furnitures, back in 2021. And yeah, it's the take is positive. At that point, I was in a position where, okay, if indeed, we, as civil subjects, are producers of incalculable sums of data that are serving to reinforce the growing class divide, then the idea was that, okay, we need some organ interfaces, physical organ interfaces to hold, our information, and to be an external physical organ that can trust and entrust with firms, profit-seeking firms, with full clearance and consent. At that time, I had been in the aftermath of some really great work witnessed from creative technologist Shin, who was dealing at the time with this protocol called TogetherNet, and it was related to basically this notion of reproducing an internet where consent is the basis of things. To put it super simply, Shin has moved on to other great things, but at the time I was really inspired by that from them. I'm gonna move forward to the next thing. So I would like to preface by saying that after I did this piece, I was kind of not super into the tone or the emotional valence of what I was conveying there. The core of it though was that, okay, if indeed our civil excrement, our trash, is what will be left behind in our like in the anthropological record, like in our geologic record, if that's what's left, okay, we need to be able to take greater agency in the dispersal of that. One moment. I need to adjust something. Oh, this is mad annoying. And, great. Yeah, cool. I need to address something. Oh, God. Y'all. I'm still getting used to this format. Please forgive me. I think we're cool. Yeah. So, so real talk though, I was really, and I was also reflecting and walking through. I'm going to talk about this more in another video, like in depth, in another like live stream, sit down, fireside, fireside, fireside type beat. You get me? But yeah, we wanna. I wanna declare that I just happened to also be again, in reviewing some of the affective, agendas of of many of the mid-century modernists, and specifically like the Japanese metabolists. Um, I was, yeah, and given that my own grounding, came so much from, the like second order cyberneticians, and specifically from some of the pontifications of Soren Breyer, and he's a I believe Danish theorist. I might be wrong. Please forgive me. I'm sorry, Scandinavia. Um, in his I believe 2013 text Cyber Semiotics, like that was really landmark for me. So at that point in 21, I was kind of reviewing. Okay, what what was the afterlife of the initial crap, the initial crap of cyberneticians, and so that takes us to the mid-century modernists. So in that essay, I kind of was short article really. I was reviewing Eames, and their solar do nothing machine, and because I was really inspired at that time by this confluence of the Sonic, which for me is again against the neo-pragmatists. This is a metaphysical kind of phenomenological kind of like construct. The idea that okay, beyond the condition of our acoustic reality, within the actual linguistic phenomena that we are engaged, there have to be like very tectonic kind of like extra mimetic, like or paramimetic or extra mimetic kinds of expressions that are belying it, that, or maybe belying you know the development and advancement of our cultures. So it, it to really, to put it even more simply, to reduce this, it's like that, it's a way, it's my idea that, like, okay, sound, um as a wave is, what we're talking about when we use terms like zeitgeist, um and the 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 kinesis, the kinetic nature of the sound is, a multiscalar, interscalar, you know um phenomena that, you know keeps us in ground and in body, but as well, you know connects us to, that which is broader, um, who's in vogue right now. Russian cosmists are very much in vogue this century, and I would say that my notion of sonic, like, rhymes rhymes with, the cosmism, um, and their cousins, like, or cousin philosophy of new spherics. Um, that's kind of not grounded. Sorry, y'all. anyone has anyone has some money for me to go to school? Let me know. Um, but yeah, like, it. I was really interested in the confluence of that, of my conception of the sonic with, um, the way that it intersects with, actually, like, meteorology uh, and and stuff. So, and the way each of these come together, and unite with, our relationship to agriculture and the various social cultures that, resulted in the aftermath of it. Um, it's interesting because in time intervening, anthropological research has concluded, or is raising the, theory that, okay, we did not develop cultural societies because of agriculture. We had them and they were thriving and real, like, when we were, like, predominantly, like, wholly hunter gatherers still, which is, should be, like, duh, because it's not like, folks who are still hunter gatherers, we still have them, don't have culture. They have, very long and very enduring cultures, like, far older than ours, that are very much alive. So yeah, I just, meh. I I wanted to share that as a pretext before I get into this, next part of my disc. My Before I get to the next part of my disc here, um, because I wanted to make it clear that, okay, what, and the next part of my disc would be, a 15-month, occupation I did as an artistic simulation, and basically as qualitative research, field research that I did, at three local Panera Bread locations here in Cumberland County, North Carolina. Um, and so I'm gonna declare some of the research here. There's a lot of, data that I've compiled in a white paper document I put together, um, back in 2022, when the bulk of this 15-month period occurred. This was, at the end of 2021 and into the first couple of months of 2023. The whole of this project, and, I'm happy to play her for you. Wait, 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 wait. I gotta find it. I gotta find it. Okay.
How might some hypothetical or how might some hy- how might some neopragmat usufruct usufruct commutative derivatives of the declarations offered in the following are to be acknowledged as such solely when delimited strictly to its explicit citation by yours truly. Any expression alleged to be mutative of the following included articles may not be considered to constitute as a commutative derivative. Commutative derivativity for these articles may only be declared in expression of mutual agreement between the firm or representative in executive holding of these articles registry as intellectual property and b. the firm or representative attempting the declaration. Included articles are designed strictly to inspire ethical entertainments. These declarations proceed as follows. Present world-making events spell out the need for low-impact, high-provision virtual furnitures to couch within the anarchic public commons. The need to develop the wealth and plurality of presently unregulated planetary systems. With projected yield of an extra-state interscalar infrastructure layer able to facilitate the separation of empirical analytics from the detritus of scientific stricture. 2. Culture quantum era empirical analytical research, diagnosis to nationalist militaristic interests. 3. Provide civil surveillance checks to Westphalian violence on our planetary common space. The following set of 7 architectural imperatives would then emerge. 1. Imperative to recognize that secularity denotes not the absence of theology. As a concept, it is expressed solely in subordination to theological perspectives. Thus, so-called secular commons, as known, are politically entropic and resultantly volatile. 2. Imperative to advocate for an extra-state interscalar surveillance stack applied in agnosis to nationalistic interests, economic gains, and theological doctrines, and multilateral Westphalianism. 3. Imperative to seek development of extra-state library systems, pressure the forefronting of library IT stacks, and novel partnerships with existing library systems to enable clear access to information within anti-hostile, politically low-friction, multi-affordance consumer third places. 4. Imperative to situate anti-hostile, politically low-friction, multi-affordance consumer third spaces as forums where public civil subjects may socially compute the data collected by extra-state surveillance stacks. 5. An imperative to prominently question why the assumption of secularity as a standalone concept potentially limits the scope and ethical governances of remote sensing surveillance practices. 6. Imperative to demonstrate, challenge, and subversively engage the erotic dimensions of surveillance. 7. Imperative to mobilize the omniscient standardization of design interiority of anti-hostile, politically low-friction, multi-affordance consumer third places as material heredities ready for creative operation as analog interscalarities, analog interscalar vehicles. From the 8-year period between April 2015 and July 2023, I conducted a 3-part multi-instrumental, integrative artistic field survey and to support inquiry upon the range and validity of occlusively abstract, high-complexity instrumentations for extended reality, XR virtual interfaces across variable inflections of physical tactility, virtual saturation, and interactive immersion. The survey modeled the application of a metric novel to my artistic research practice, X.Q, standing for interactivity, quotient, which is factorable in quantifying the inflections of physical tactility, virtual saturation, and interactive immersion within virtual interfaces of variable complexity. At the midpoint of 2022, I reached a flashpoint amid the third and final segment of my field survey. As practical function of the segment, ranged examination of inductively talismanic virtual instrumentations and their success as recognizable XR objects via interrogative civil enactment. I was led to undertake a duration of 15-month occupation of the synthetic public commons presented by the J. Ape Holdings owned fast casual bakery cafe chain franchise Eatery, Panera Bread, and all three of its locations in Cumberland County, North Carolina, in addition to the chain's unofficial, semi-permeable, staff-run, and largely staff-populated digital dark forests on Reddit and Discord. Substantive industrial instrumentation deployed was presented as a potential of anti-hostile politically low-friction multi-affordance third spaces as viable and intentional interscalar vehicles for civic governance and forms of democratic expression transcending our existing ways to prolific interdependency, through substantiating individual civil subject level interface, established spaces agnostic to the Westphalian International System AWS's Gabriel Hecht. The examination led to the uncovering of relevant qualitative results detailed within the official artistic field survey report published on my website samsung.tech. Methodologically necessary here was the performance of a civil sit-in of the chain's local establishments and relevant accessible intellectual properties. This included the performance of an asexual and objectophilic cybernetic romance of the chain's Panera digital brand membership and subordinate SIP Club subscription product. Such a romance resolved itself within a legal exploitation of the physical usufruct of the chain's dining room locations as low-cost remote co-working spaces, and resulted in a libidinal asexual relationship to the chain's IP expressed in the chain's subsequent composition of roughly 30% of my weekly caloric intake. This phase of performance occurred across a period of 5 months between December 2021 and May 2022. The maneuver came as a response to a statement issued by the chain's acting CEO, Niran Chaudhary, that the company he leads, quote, is a technology brand, unquote, rather than simply a food and beverage company. As such, during pandemic-induced cultural virtualization among the period from 2020 until the present, the company has architected a marked increase in both its sales and cultural recognizability. The following phase of the performance came through intentional reduction of the chain's composition of my weekly caloric intake from a margin of 30% down to a margin of roughly 20%, and the asynchronous fabrication of the articles featured in this report across the 9-month period between June of 22 and March of 2023. A guiding concern within the performance emerged about the chain's stature as primarily, quote, a technology, unquote, in observing the discontinuity between those assembling cookies, bread bowls, soups, salads, and sandwiches, and those assembling the smartphones facilitating the digital activities passively surveyed during each trip to the chain's dining room locations or use of its e-commerce services. Those engaging the former presumably have the ability to develop both product customizations and novel relationships with end users, whilst members of the latter group are presumably granted no such access. Functionally speaking, if Panera Bread is a digital age technology company, then perhaps its end users are consumers of nutritional content, its bakers are programmers, and other staff would qualify as performing the role of intelligent program maintenance automata. One exercise conducted across the ending of this performance sees first phase until the beginning of its second phase surveyed employee faculty for menu customization and the contours of employee mimetic expression within these bounds. This exercise was performed through the institution of a beverage composition game where novel compositions of fountain beverages were guessed by members of the unofficial staff-run Our Panera platform. 2. Performance of panic with regards to the company send new charged lemonade drinks parity to other high caffeine, high sugar carbonate consumption, both on Our Panera and its associated Discord, and 3. Auditions and beverage composition game and dilution reviews began with warm reception, but quickly became branded as an annoyance to the Our Panera platform, following the successful expression of charged lemonade panic on both Our Panera and its associated Discord. The character of responses following the pending performance seemed to indicate a general sense of pride in both the company and workplace for digitally engaged members of staff, with such panic being taken as an attempt to induce unwelcome cynicism. None of the novel charged lemonade dilution concoctions seemed to lend themselves toward any repeating mimetic expression or amounted to the generation of any featured secret drink menu native to the unofficial digital platform. Employee relationships to menu items seem to be highly personal, with employees posting shift, break menu customizations that seem not to be shared collectively. A measure of respondent agitation to the exercise seemed to express, as well, confound at a break in professional boundary between consumers and employees. These unofficial virtual third places seem to be a place for workers to communally process their experiences online and assumed as a space for all others simply to make complaints, rather than to engage good faith interaction. Dining room kitchens seem to express anti-hostility for all but the workers, and a potentially dangerous relation between employer and employed. This results in questions regarding the extent to which labor hierarchies eroticize when these technology assembly lines suggest staff to be virtualized product automata and frontline brand ambassadors simultaneously. How much cognitive distance are workers able to retain from the output of their labor? How do the employees relate to the physical and virtual products? How do these people situate within the company's broader organizational design when their roles are assessed in totality? And do these concerns connect to existing allegations of child labor law violations occurring in its kitchens, declarations which are often most viewable in places like our Panera? Ambient transgression of the usufruct of Panera bread, synthetic comments, and associated virtual tech stack unearth questions about the possibility of future anti-hostile political low friction multi-affordance third places and their potentials for interscalar civic governance. Roberto Sonino of the Center for Environment and Sustainability at the University of Surrey calls the kinds of ESG quotas and other notions of sustainability empty signifiers and calls for a recognition of the failure to grasp the complexity of food as a system in order to further the designing and implementation of transformative agendas. For successful anti-hostile, politically low-friction, multi-affordance consumer third places to be expressed, would not availability of a comprehensive material ontology of existing consumer products from nutritional to aesthetic to infrastructural serve as a helpful virtual Parapegma 35 interface for civil subject level lecture and computation of environmental and cultural complexity? Would it not enable the synthetic commons simulated by existing consumer-driven third places to facilitate consumer agnosticism? And could not such an interscalar spatial interface provide nescence to functional economies of dematerialization at civil subject level, enabling cultural agency within hominid ontologies of waste deposition and deep time fossilization? Some of the questions explored within this work found fiction-based simulation within short story entitled Have Red Shoes by artist and clown Daniel Um's collaboration with My Publishing Administration piece from Eric.
Okay, so now, in the following period, after this study was done, definitely decided, okay, let's engage some fiction. Let's develop some fiction. So I worked together with through my publishing administration piece from Earth. I worked together with who was at the time a new friend, a writer and clown and artist, Daniel to develop a short story, a novelette. We call it a novella called Have Red Shoes. I'd like to share 2 chapters from Have Red Shoes. I believe there are 5 or 6 in total. This won't be very long. It is a little bit graphic, though, so be forewarned. It's a little bit graphic.
Next, I'll present 2 excerpts from Have Red Shoes, a story where a middle-aged vagrant succumbs to cardiac arrest over his mealtime at a fast casual bakery cafe chain. The character struggles with this moment as the end of his waking life. Excerpt 1. A series of circles, colorless and edgeless, are affixed into their positions upon a flat lake. Some are touching each other, though others cannot. Rendered upon the surface of one such circle present 2 animals breathing huskily. They are sitting next to each other in front of an empty table with no food. The light of their phones undulate beneath the table. One texts the other, afraid that people will overhear him. A floodlight above him is a bit too intense on his poor scalp. He has been weeping. Omission? 6. The other one does acknowledge the text. You think our order's ready yet? She asks. 7. He sighs. 8. She then smiles at an elderly turtleneck person having newly entered the area and offers a quiet greeting. They are all patrons at a fast casual bakery cafe chain, Jazimba. Giada exits the booth where they are seated and waddles off to the drink bubblers. 10. Buddy, do you think our order is ready yet? She asks once again. From across the restaurant, a groan sounds from our first animal, Buddy. He does recoil, but instead skiffles over to her at the fountain drink bubblers, like a Yorkie pup ready for ice cream. Giada's eyes roll back into deep infinity. Buddy's doing the thing where they cause a commotion by pretending to have an argument. He reeks of WD-40. 15. Buddy moves close to the two silvery studs in Giada's right tragus. 16. Grasping her upper arm, we see redacted lipped into her ear for the elderly patron on the other side of the restaurant. There is a splosh of blood in his mid-face. Buddy then kisses her on the cheek, meeting his eyes with a set of ugly chartreuse-blotched spaghetti straps worn by the person holding an empty cup in the newly forming line behind the two of them, the drink machine and the self-service kiosks. Once breaking contact, she and Buddy are recalling the dozens of times these kinds of affectations, a loud whisper, a glare, and a tenuous kiss provoke just the right kind of reaction from onlookers. None of it appears to work today. The glare alone would have normally been enough. Buddy's glare would typically draw another bad look, and then, before we knew it, he and Giada would be arguing with their prey like chicken heads in the parking lot. Tag team? When you go into the restroom, Giada then declares before toiling away in flip-flops and soiled feet. 22. Buddy empties their cups of Pepsi Palmers into the fountain drink machine and lobs them into the plastic recyclers for proper disposal. 23. He walks up to the order pickup counter and asks if the food is ready yet, knowing good and well that they had not even ordered anything. No one heard him. A successful man of mystery, am I not? He mumbled to himself. What an embarrassment. 24. Beginning to step away, he sees a member of crew look up from being nose and knuckles deep in a strawberry poppy seed fiesta blend salad to weekly wail, "Give me a second, sir. We'll be right with you." Another crew member then meekly intervenes, asking what name did you order under. 25. Buddy blankly locks eyes with both crew members, does not respond, backs up, and turns away. 26. Buddy returns to the booth. He examines his hands, their dark hairs, scaly knuckles, and shiny, bulbous club fingertips. Spaced out, he feels a jolt at his breast. Giada texts. 27. Giada texts. 29. Christ. He yanks at his fingers and navigates to the app store. He finds the Jazimba app, but of course doesn't see their order anywhere. How could he find an order he didn't even place? 31. He moves towards table 47, near the stairs leading to the second floor. 32. From Giada's phone number, Buddy receives a Smith screenshot of the order for table 47. 33. Buddy glances at the flooring for a few passing milliseconds. He believes he sees concrete exposed from beneath the forest green, threadbare carpeting. Through the reflection in the windows, one can see Giada dimple back into the scene's visible area unexpectedly. 35. Told you, babe. I'll be right back. Giada says, whilst holding another two large plastic cups, sloshing with charged mango lemonades. And don't forget, they're going to leave the food right there on the counter, as she flicks her head over to the counter. 36. Giada's got messy curls, toned the blonde so dirty that they appear gray. 37. She has also traded her trademark nude lip gloss for a cakey brown matte tint and bold, shamrock green eyeshadow wisped on both apples of her acid senesced cheeks. 38. From a window's reflection, she looks like a regular Jamaican-themed airbrush tee. She glances there to the windows and almost blinks as if to confidently declare it is game time. The true ready-made Jazimba fashion story. Bob, can you stop yelling? Everyone's staring at us right now. Buddy loudly interjects, seemingly from nowhere. Giada just can't right now. Looks at her phone and ignores Buddy. Still, he reeks. He reeks of WD-40. 42. Bro, do you do this? Buddy beckons to the spaghetti-strapped patron to which they have now relocated near. 43. Spaghetti straps acts as if he said nothing. They go back to the fountain drink machine. 44. Is my food ready yet? They paid nearly $70 for a twofer and a cookie. Your service had better be top nutty-notch, or we will have a problem, Buddy exclaims as he points to his prop gun. Bring my food here now, come my expenses and give me a refund, or I will take my business elsewhere. And strap this pissy should we do this from the table? Instead, on the app excuse for a Jazimba establishment. On Yelp, 45, spaghetti straps, holding a fresh fountain drink, hurries over to the order counter. The drink is slushing as they speak to the general manager. 46. The manager, in a pair of black clogs and a red crewneck sweater, comes to the scene. 47. Mamma mia! Their red pepperoni eyes glisten with oil as they cheerfully address our buddy. What seems to be the problem here? 48. Caught off guard, dropped a napkin carrying a soft-boiled chicken's fetus he and Giada intended to use as a meal refund ticket generator. 49. He takes a sip of his charged mango lemonade and twists backward into a squat, left hand on ground, to pick up the napkin. 50. Clear pearls of sweat populate the oily T-zone of his face and darken the angry, red-shadowed pockmarks of acne scarring along his temples. Buddy begins to tremble, the pressure of his blood so high that the seams of his cuticles split as his left hand grips the carpet. 51. The oxygen inside of his lungs boil, inflaming every blood vessel, soil streaming down his legs, past his shorts, the popping veins on each side of his neck crisp, and purple the fat subcutaneous to his skin, all the way to his cheeks. 52. He is made rust from within. 53. And in front of us now, a throbbing, troubled marionette of a human body has pickled into a kind of broken pork skin. 54. His clothing melts away, and he now shines lobster red. His skin cool as a December river creek. 55. Strangely, the cones of his eyes are made spare to this tremorous and uncanny suffering. They blacken into stars peppering the dark of his retina and are pressed by the extant pads of bright milken clouds. 56. The mucosal contrast of their texture wanes as they expand into deeper convexity. 57. While Buddy still sees, his awareness carries nothingness, rocking him about as if he were an infant. 58. All he feels is a weight concentrated heavy upon his brow bone's contour, and a tight clot of cotton, dry thirst at his throat impossible for him to explain, and his skin cool as a December river creek. 59. Circles emerge and come white.
So have red shoes. I should say this. It is veritably a network fiction, meaning literally it's told from the point of view of the Wi-Fi of Jazimba. um, I was reading some really interesting scientific research happening around that period of time, 23, 24, a little bit earlier than that. That now is pop culture, pop science. At the point, it was not that at the time of writing, 2024, 2023. That, Wi-Fi can be used to monitor your breathing, and so I began to ask questions like, oh wait, what if its ability to monitor your breath can then abstract other kinds of details, especially with all the behavioral data that's just out there. who's to say that doesn't function as a kind of telepathy? Already, that's like completely legal. Oh no no. So this is definitely like a speculative fiction. Um, yeah, written in response to that. I guess that would make this sci-fi. So this is my way of engaging sci-fi without engaging um, futurism.
Except to 3092, he hears no sound directly, but feels them through vibrations reverberating around the bathroom walls. A muffled groan is felt from afar. Red swirls through his valence electrons feeling out the world. 393, light folds into itself over and over, while body continues to float and gaze helplessly. 394, repulsive electric forces and hydrogen bonding caress body deeper into space. He remembers who he is for a fraction of a nanosecond, but forgets this moment, and then forgets what it even means to forget. Thoughts bubble around like chicken bouillon cubes in boiling water, taking forever to melt. 397. The bathroom walls watch on in unison, closing in on him as the screen fades to black. 319. Suffocation comes to an end for Buddy. A shock of liquid, uncontrolled and tempestuous, flushes energy back through him, ringing his hollow places. 39. Then. A loud muffled laugh pierces through the bathroom walls from outside. 400. A whoosh, and up Buddy goes. 41, 0.00003% of his essence is catapulted into the air, and it slowly settles down onto a glossy nose of silver. 402. The nose droops downward and stares eternally at a rusted mesh, where only darkness and gravity lies beyond. 403. The rest of Buddy says hi to Spaghetti Straps, sad, sad gut biome, all riding down that ancient pipe that leads to the septic tank. 404. A sort of heavy resounding gong crashes through and bounces between the walls. This is a knock on the door. 405. Yeah. On a second is what Buddy manages to piece together with this now zero. 5-second sample rate of the world around him. 406. Waves of fresh nitrogen and other molecules suddenly swirl inside. 407. I just says can't one more. The smell of sweat and sounds of struggle is all Buddy manages to decipher in this moment. Feel who, who. Try who. Try me, 408. Hot water vapor covers the limited range of space Buddy can muster to move along. Nothing is present for Buddy to scale. No one or nothing to climb. Nothing to mount. No tools. 409. Three things happen then, and kind of at the same time. Our 0.003% Buddy feels itself floating closer and closer to red and orange hills, the smell of tomatoes and olive oil. 401. A scud of garlicky steam rains upon our Buddy. The lights upon him blacken, bringing a crash of heat, a heavy load. A soup of enzymes, only evident in this dark through their aqueous stench, crowd around him. They cling to his edges and begin to slowly burn away at his parts. 412. Finally, the weight of the load, almost inexplicably, deepens further. 413. The rumbling hum of a new light, cool and red, flattened Buddy thin. This light flashes once, then twice. A third time, fourth time, a fifth time, and a sixth. 414. The grip upon Buddy's edges release. A seventh, an eighth, and a ninth. The enzymes decompose immediately next to Buddy's remains. 450. Bitch oh. Yelp right now. Buddy hears in whispers. Vibration sounding og rock him about. 416. The flashes of heavy, thinning, and cooling red light left Buddy's remains under such disorientation that it was difficult for him to tell how powerful these vibrations even were. 417. Now,
That's all I'm gonna do of that. Again, I would say that Have Red Shoes was a way to engage sci-fi without futurism. Um, I'd like to play some excerpts from this piece of music that was written as a documentation of the asexual love relationship. The objectophilic love relationship between myself and my Panera Bread membership. This, I would say, is evidence of, I think, the qualitative metal beyond the actual, like, graphic and textual data and digital records of engagement in the our Panera spreads and other dark forests.
Finally,
I should also say that the music is written from the perspective, like there is some lyricism, and it's written from the perspective of the ghost of um, Claudia Sanders, um, the uh, the wife and restaurateur of fellow restaurateur Colonel Sanders. At again, within the course of my time as the Bride of Panera, I was doing a lot of reading up into the work of Nixon and what he sought to do in his inversion of American duopoly in politics, and the end goal of that being like racial white supremacy, of course, and the coordinated effort that he undertook in order to produce more black Republicans post inversion. And also to slowly eat away at black physical health as well. Not that there's like any conclusive documents, but I will say that in the White House, Colonel Sanders' home, you can see some awards given to him by President Nixon, recognizing his achievements, and so I was just really intrigued by that relation, and I had actually done up and made some plans to actually go visit the White House in around Louisville, Kentucky, right outside there. But things happened and that didn't work out, which is when a lot of the stuff came to a formal end and life stepped in. Namely, Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos started influencing my life, so here we are.
I love her, and my feet chafe and peel. reservoir in the palms, my king in white, will burn September. Kisses, sweetie.